Welcome to the Cult of Football on the Cult of Manager YouTube channel. So this is going to be a new series where I've announced this a little bit on Twitter, and I put I don't know what it's called, a community poll, I think, or community post on YouTube, just saying that, yeah, I'm not going to leave this channel just with nothing going on until the point where I come back to it, because obviously now with my new job, I can't speak about the game anymore. But I wanted to just carry on using the channel for something, because I felt like we did such a great thing with the channel and everybody involved, and I felt like I wanted to continue to provide something, but I wasn't quite sure what. I wasn't sure whether people would rather see just other games, or whether they'd rather see real football be spoken about if I can't talk about the game itself. So I think most people that play Football Manager are massive football fans first. So I felt like that talking about real football with my coaching background as well a little bit might be a better way to go. So this series that we're going to start is going to be about just real football. And I'm not going to... I did originally think about maybe making it just topic specific to just maybe one thing, but I just felt like that football is such a broad range of topics, whether it's coaching, real teams and real tactical styles, the feeling amongst fans with certain clubs as well. There's just so many different things that incorporates football that I wanted to basically have no topic with it. Just the fact it's going to be about real world football. We're going to look at multiple different things. So we might look at some teams historically, so some historic teams. Looking at some of the stats, some of the things that they did as a team, and talking about why they were successful, what conditions had to happen for them to be successful, things like that. We'll look at some of the teams now as well. Like, I have some access to some pretty good statistical information. So I think using that and talking about some real life teams right now, analysing some games before they happen, and looking at a few different topics. So, like, just off the top of my head, there's a couple that I want to look at. I want to look at Nottingham Forest for a lot of obvious reasons. They got a good chance this year of going up, but we'll have to see. There's Manchester City, and at the moment their XG is quite interesting. Their expected goals, which obviously you should never look at a stat in isolation, use that as a barometer for anything. It's always got to be contextualised. Stats always have to be contextualised. There's a couple of interesting stats for Manchester City and their expected goals, and how there's a lot of times in this sort of period where they end up with an XG that's quite low, below 1.5, and those are the games where they do often seem to drop points, be very close to dropping points. And I do feel like that they should be good for the title, but in the Champions League, like, for example, if you're getting below 1.5 XG, you're winning a game 1-0, most of the time, City, 9 times out of 10, will still win that game 1-0, because they're just so good at controlling the game. They don't have to create absolutely world-class chances to score goals, because they're just that good. But, and if you do lose one game out of 10, well, so what? We'll win the other 9 the next time, and we'll still stay top of the league. They're just that good in a title race, especially in England with Pep Guardiola. They're just brilliant, so there's no real concern there. But in the Champions League, for example, if that game you lose happens to be 2-0 in the first leg against a good team, Manchester City don't have a great record at coming back from behind to win games. This season in particular, I think they don't go behind that often. That's part of the stat that misleads a little bit. But like, Arsenal was one of the few times this year where they actually did that. And in the Champions League, that might happen. And City, I think, have always been a team that once they get out in front, they stay out in front. Probably the best team in the world at doing that. And that's a sort of methodology for success for them. But if they were to get a team, and I think specifically an English team, I think that's their only problem right now, is if they were to get Liverpool. I think Liverpool's going to be their kryptonite a little bit in the Champions League. But we could talk about that from not just maybe my opinion and the reasons I think, but maybe some stats as well. And there's also times where I think that it's good for me to give my opinion on something, and we'll go into the stats, and maybe the stats actually tell something different. So it's not always about just here's my opinion, here's why I'm right. But it might be that here's a discussion point, because every video I do isn't me imparting wisdom and everybody just taking it face value. It's like, let's have a discussion about it, because football is for everybody. Brian Clough said that one time. Football is for everybody. It's not just for the coaches, managers, and the players. It's for everybody. And everybody has the potential to have a very good opinion. Everybody has the potential to have a very bad opinion. And be right and wrong about things. And just because you have credentials on paper doesn't really mean anything, to be honest. Like, if somebody's got a B license like me, we might know how coaching courses are done and how coaching's supposed to look on paper. But like, just having an opinion on a team, like, there could be a fan of a different team that's watched their team for 10 years who may not have any coaching badges. That doesn't really matter. What I'm saying is that isn't the only thing that people should look at, is taking somebody's opinion because of their coaching qualifications, coaching experience, or playing experience. Anybody can have a good opinion, anybody can have a bad opinion. And yeah, we'll just go through things, and I would like to think that I'd be right more times than I'm wrong. But yeah, we'll see. That's how it's going to run. So it's going to be not really just like I don't want it to be like a lecture style video where I just tell you all these things and you're enlightened. It's more here's all this information. Definitely let me know what you think. And it's not because I'm looking for an YouTube algorithm or anything like that. It's because I'm generally interested to see what people's thoughts are. And I think that, you know, when you get into the coaching world, you don't come across day-to-day conversations as much. You end up speaking to colleagues and that a lot more about stuff. So I like to have varied opinions from all different parts of football. Another thing I wanted to look at was Simeone. Now, I know there's a new documentary out on him on Amazon Prime, I believe. I've not seen it yet. And one of my big things with Simeone is anybody that knows me knows that I love Brian Clough, I love Pep Guardiola, I love Diego Simeone. And for all different reasons. And I do think that a lot of people give Diego Simeone a bit of shit because of his style of football, but my answer to that would be that you wouldn't want everybody to play the same way. Because if everybody played in, let's say, Liverpool style, in a high-pressing, very dynamic, almost using, you know, 3 players to cover 4 positions in midfield and trying to, you know, just from the way that they press and the pressing traps they set and the way that they are out of possession, they are a phenomenal team to go and press like that. And basically, if you were to get 2 teams to go and play the way they do, and you've got one team that can do all of that out of possession, but then be world-class in possession, against a team that can do it out of possession but have not got the technical abilities to execute what they do in possession, that team is going to lose quite a lot of times more often than not to Liverpool in that circumstance. And you don't want that. You want teams to be different. My analogy would be, you know, if they said, like, okay, from now on, we're only going to make films of one category, we're only going to make comedy films for the rest of time, you'd be like, well, hang on a minute, I want to see something different. Maybe it is a category you like, but you want to see something else as well. So it's really good to have different styles of football, and it brings out the best in everybody, and it makes you appreciate different ways to do things, and it makes people and coaches have critical thinking and come up with new ways to be inventive and to be successful. So I think it's a good thing. But anyway, my point with Simeone was that in all the seasons he's been at Atletico Madrid, he's only got to 90 points once. Every other season he's been below 90 points in his team's league total. Now, if you were to compare that to Pep Guardiola's Barcelona or even his Manchester City team, you'd think that, well, okay, more often than not, he's going to have a 0 chance to win the title because that team's going to get more than 90 points. In La Liga, it's not actually acted out that way too much. They've quite often since Pep's left, a lot of the teams only end up getting in that sort of area anyway. It's just that Atletico, you can't just say, well, if they got 1 point less net the season after than the year before, that it was like he took them backwards, because there are variables in football, right? There could be a season where you play exactly the same, but a couple of games where you got a penalty or you got a lucky red card for the opposition, you don't get that the next season. The points could vary. So within the margin of error, I think he's only had 1 bad season since they won the league the first time. Every other season, he's within the margin of error. So he doesn't really ever take Atletico Madrid backwards, which is what I keep reading about. He keeps them where they are. Now, there is the argument that no matter what money they spend on players, he seems to not take them any further forwards. You can make that argument. But he doesn't really take them backwards, ever. He keeps them roughly where they are. They're always in that sort of, I think it's 83 to 90 margin, or 89 margin, when you hit 90 once. And if the other 2 teams have a bad season, they win the league. That's how it's worked out. But his 2013-14 achievement of winning La Liga with Atletico Madrid against 2 of the biggest teams in Spain at the very, very top, you know, of their domination, where the Spanish national team had just won 3 international tournaments in a row. He was against Messi and Ronaldo in their absolute primes, with teams that were consistently winning the La Ligas and Champions Leagues. Both of those teams were winning them at the time, off and on, mixing, or basically swapping with each other, really. And for Atletico Madrid to go there and win the league with the team that he had, the money they'd spent, is, I think, one of the biggest achievements ever in football. And that's not a recency bias thing. That's something that I don't just say flippantly, which I know a lot of people do. That I just think that there's never really been, for a long time anyway, a Messi and Ronaldo at the peak of their powers at the same time. Have them both in the same league and then have a different team win it is just incredible. And to be doing it the way they did was just fantastic. And a style of football that isn't attributed to Spanish football much, especially for a top team. So I just think for so many reasons, Atletico Madrid and Simeone was fantastic. But yeah, there are knocks on Simeone. That is one of them. But then my sort of point is that we can deep dive into the stats at some point in the future video about like the points total, the points totals they had, the expected goals, the goals against, goals for, and try and look at it from a tactical perspective, why they struggled to get any progress on where they were the year before. And there's always multiple factors. It's not just tactics, also players, transfers. Atletico Madrid don't have the luxury, or didn't have the luxury, of just sitting on a winning team and adding to it. They had players that want to leave, Diego Costa, Griezmann, players like that they'd have to sell and replace, and yeah, all that sort of stuff. Point as well, I'm going to look to turn this into like a podcast type, having like people on. So within my experience with the football, I think it's good to have so many different kinds of opinions. So I'd love to have, yes, other coaches on, analysts, scouts, maybe ex-players, if we get that. Fans, just people, just everyday people who I think always have sometimes the best perspective on things because they live in the real world, they deal with the real world consequences of the decisions made by owners, managers, coaches, all that kind of stuff. One thing I also want to look at is go through Barcelona and their transfer history since Pep has left the club. It's unbelievable to see how many transfers they've made, big transfers on players when they already had like a decent youth prospect coming through La Masia, who they basically just abandoned to bring in a big money, big wages player that they probably didn't need, and to put themselves in the financial situation that they're in for the players they brought in, it just wasn't worth it. And not only was it not worth it, but then you stunt the growth of the players that could have been maybe not the next quite Xavi and Iniesta, but something close to it. And you didn't have to spend £30 million and spend 200 grand a week on a player that massively underperformed. So that's definitely something I'd also like to look at in a future video. Definitely some tactical videos as well will come out, some deep dive tactical videos. The problem with doing it on YouTube in this format is obviously I can't show the videos because of copyright stuff, so still images. Maybe that's a future thing to think about, how to better do that. Yeah, that's the only problem we've got is on a tactical deep dive, is that can be quite, I think, dry without any actual video clips, when it's just somebody speaking with some images, so we'll see on that. I also am going to consider like still doing other games on the channel, but it's just, you know, it was so specific to one game that to start doing FIFA, Resident Evil, the other games on it as well. I could still do that, and I still have got all the access to still record and upload. I've still got quite a few episodes recorded of FIFA and Resident Evil, actually, now I think about it. But yeah, this is going to be just purely football based, this section of the channel, I guess. I could make a new channel, but I just thought that the channel was already here. It's football, it's related to what was there before. It's just going to be something slightly different. And historic teams as well. I definitely look at Mourinho's Chelsea from the first 2 seasons, I guess, that he was in England. Raf Benitez as well, maybe that season more so the 08-09 season. But the big thing for me is how football evolved. There are certain seasons where I just think football completely changed. And normally it doesn't really happen just like that, like a click of the fingers. It's like there's like a transition year or two and then football completely changes. But sometimes it's a couple of managers that come in and just football seems to change. Sometimes there's like technology, just like where maybe, I don't know, whether when the Premier League was invented, maybe then when they started to broadcast games in high definition, where there's more televised games, football just became different, I think, at different parts of the decades recently. And I think it'd be good to look at sort of where that change came, and I think you can see it tactically as well. I think tactically the sport changed quite a lot when certain managers came into the Premier League. Not always foreign managers, there were a couple of English ones as well that changed it probably for the better and raise the standards of this league. And it's going to be interesting to go through, look at some of that, look at some of the historical stuff as well, and look at how we sort of got to where we are today and where it's going to go next. Because I think right now we're living in an era where it's going to be looked at as the sort of Guardiola and Klopp era, and they'll probably both leave, you would expect, around the same sort of time. You would think. And then when they both go, how different the Premier League is going to feel when you don't have those 2 managers anymore, and the 2 clubs that are always going to be favourites to the title. I think while they're both there, the other teams have always been playing a bit of catch up. I think a lot of them are in rebuild sort of situations. We'll see how things play out from there. And yeah, just some stuff like that would be quite interesting. So in conclusion, we're going to look at a lot of different things regarding football. So the tactical stuff, deep dive tactical stuff, some historical teams, looking at how football's changed, certain managers in particular I want to look at, especially ones that are going to be just in contention for those top jobs for the next few years. Specific clubs as well. I'd like to get at least one video done on every team in the Premier League. I don't know about this season because there might be some teams that go down, but like some of the teams that we know are going to be there for a few years and their stories and where they're going to go next. Yeah, and loads of different things. So loads of different things to do with football, completely varied, and I'm going to try and make sure that when the video goes up, there'll be no clickbait stuff. Like I don't do this for that. So when I put up a video, you don't have to like click to find out what's inside the episode. You'll know what's in the episode by the title. So it's like an episode where, I don't know, if you're a coach and it's a coaching specific one about the B license and level 2 and how the difference between the 2 and how you can then utilize it in your own teams regardless of level, age and ability. That might be really interesting to you if you coach, or if you're looking at coaching, we might be interested. But if you're not and you're not really interested in coaching, you might go, okay, I'll give that one a miss and I'll see what's in the next one. And so yeah, that's probably what will happen is something like that. And then I think separately I will have, within the same sort of like, it'll be in the same series I guess, but I'll section it off a little bit, is a specific podcast episode. When it's a podcast episode, that will be, I guess, when I have somebody on to talk with me about certain things, and I'd like as many people that want to come on, I'd have on, because it's I like having conversations, right? And it's always good where I might be saying something that you might not be quite understanding my point, or might not be quite agreeing with me, and somebody else says it in a slightly different way, like, okay, yeah, now, yeah, I do agree with it, because it's like that. You might be like, I don't really agree with that, and somebody else says why you disagree with it, like, oh yeah, good, I'm glad somebody told him X, Y, Z. That's always good on a podcast as well. You're not always going to agree with somebody, but like, I've got no agenda, I've got no deep, like, agenda towards pushing a narrative or supporting a certain person. Like, I'm just going to give my honest opinion. It's going to be somebody who just has a bit of experience in football. We're going to talk about football, and hopefully in a style that you enjoy. I think that the big thing to do is to try and create a massively controversial opinion, to get loads of people to phone in if you're on a radio show, or to, you know, and then just try and create controversy, because it gets clicks, likes, comments, and that's the way you make money, and that's the way you do things. That's not what I'm about at all. So it's going to be, you know, just more honest conversations in a calm manner, but with always something to back up what I'm saying. I don't just make generic opinions based on nothing. I'll always have something and a reason to back it up, and sometimes it's really in depth and I stand by 100%. Sometimes it's more like a feeling, and there's a couple of examples as to why, but I'll be quite open that, you know, I'm not set on it, that it could easily change, which I think is really important. We're going to look at it from like a scientific standpoint, have some good conversations hopefully going forwards, and creating some good content and engaging everybody in a good community. So yeah, that's the plan going forwards. Hopefully you'll enjoy the series. Raf Benitez is a good case. I want to talk about Raf Benitez so much because, yeah, in short, I think Raf Benitez is a great manager who's just made some really bad decisions in what jobs he's gone to. He went to Inter Milan after he won the Champions League. He went to Madrid at a bad time. He went to Everton because I think he really just wanted a job back in England after COVID and being close to his family, but it was never the right job. I think he just made some really bad decisions about where he's gone. And if you actually look at the jobs where he's not, like he was at Liverpool before the money came in, they actually had money to spend. Like, there's just so many things that he did that was a bit unlucky, and it's also making your own luck, where he sort of just chosen jobs because he felt like he couldn't turn them down, I guess, but really probably should have thought about it a bit further. But yeah, that's another good example of somebody I'd like to talk about, which I'm sure Everton fans would love to hear. Would love to hear some negative things said about him, and maybe other fans not so much. But yeah, that's going to do it. Hopefully I cut this video down a bit. I've gone over a bit the time I was expecting to do, so hopefully this isn't too long. This is more like this is what's coming. Yeah, the Cult of Football is going to be on the Cult Football Manager YouTube channel, and we will start off with a few episodes on a few different things, and hopefully I'll get a guest on quite soon. If you do want to be on, and you've got a specific reason or specific topic in mind, feel free to message me. If it's a topic that I'm looking at soon, I'm happy to have anybody on, obviously, because it's recorded. If it's not quite where I thought the conversation was going, we could always cut bits up and or just not post it out there. I don't think I'd have the same open invitation if it was live, because you never know what's going to be said by somebody. But yeah, that's open to anybody. It's not what your experiences or your backgrounds. So yeah, that's open to absolutely anybody if they want to come on. But I think the first few episodes I'm going to try and get some of my coaching friends to come in and speak. Some of them are more comfortable doing that than others for different reasons. Some of them work at clubs where well, it's not they're not allowed, but they don't want to say something that they feel like that they might get in trouble for. So yeah, there's a couple of reasons to it. Hopefully we can get a few of them on, and yeah, we get this started. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for episode 1. Hi everybody, you can probably tell this is being recorded at a different time, a different day from the previous part of the video. I just wanted to say that in addition to the new series coming out that we're talking about just real life football, there is a possibility that I'll be able to be making Football Manager content again as well going forwards. Now that is a possibility. I won't know for about a week after this video comes out the answer to that specifically, but there is a possibility they might happen. I just wanted to put this in the video because it's information that yeah, I wanted to just raise, that there's a possibility that could be happening again soon as well. So not only will we be back regularly making videos on real football, there's a possibility we can go straight back into FM content. And I'd like to know your thoughts really, whether I carry on with the Barcelona and Leeds save that I had going on. I think a lot of people like the Barcelona one in particular, so we could definitely carry that on from where we left off. Or whether you'd rather see some new stuff. That's just a question anyway at the end of this video. I wanted to sort of put out there and to watch this space. If you don't already, follow me on Twitter, because that's where I'll be able to update you on what's coming up and what the future of the channel's looking like, and what's coming up in future episodes. And hopefully we have some good news next week. But yeah, like I said, I won't know for a little bit, like for a week or so after this video comes out. Hopefully we can, and back making FM content, because I miss doing it and miss interacting with everybody. And yeah, that is going to finish the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.